Okay, I believe we're on the air now. Um, Sorry, we're a little late, guys. Technical difficulties, as usual. But we're doing a transitioning from student to alumnus roundtable. I'm Ryan Alexander. I graduated in 2010 from East Tennessee State University, and I'm currently the Vice President of Alumni Development. And we've got Becky Chamberlain and
Yep.
Sarah Smith, and I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit.
All right. I am Becky Chamberlain, also known as Becky Askew, my maiden name. I was a brother at the Beta Rho chapter at James Madison University and graduated in 1997. I was vice president of alumni development all the way back in 98 to 2000. And I currently am an HR specialist at a company here in Salt Lake City that provides HR services to other companies.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Smith. I graduated from Kutztown University in 2013, where I was a member of the Epsilon Alpha chapter, and currently I am the Alumni Relations Coordinator for Phi Sigma Pi.
All right, that's who we are. If you have a question that you want answered, please tweet it using hashtag PSP Roundtable. Leave a comment on Phi Sigma Pi's Facebook page, or you can send an email to socialmedia@phisigmapi.org. Any of those, and hopefully we'll be able to catch it and answer your questions, maybe even in real time. How about that?
Yeah.
So, all right, why don't we start this thing off? A question that we often get is, how do I become an alumni member, or who qualifies as an alumni member? And the short and easy part of this is anyone who graduates and has gone through the alumni ritual. As long as you graduate in good standing, then and go through the alumni ritual at the end of, well, hopefully your collegiate career, you're then considered an alumnus or alumna. So, anybody want to add anything to that? I mean, it's pretty much cut and dry. Also, the nice thing about once you become an alumnus or an alumna is you can join NAA, which is the National Alumni Association, which will keep you involved. We'll talk more about that later. But NAA is a great way to stay connected to what the fraternity is doing on a national scale. You get your copy of the Lampadium twice a year. So there's my little plug for NAA. So how is being an alumni member different than a collegiate member? That's a good question. If you think about it, a vast majority of your brotherhood experience is actually after you graduate. Most people, spend maybe 3.5, sometimes 4 years as a brother in undergrad, but then the rest of your life is also spent as a brother too. So, once you graduate and enter the real world, things obviously change a little bit. Family comes around, bills you actually have to start paying. All those student loans that you spent on hamburgers and gas actually have to get paid back now, and that sucks, let me tell you. But the hard part is finding a balance between all of that and professional work demands and trying to stay connected and committed to the fraternity too. But the nice thing is, no matter where you go, there will always be brothers to support you. This is one of the great things about being an alumni is just about anywhere you go, you're going to find brothers. It may be undergraduate brothers nearby. It may be that there are alumni in the area looking to contact or connect with you. It's hard to go anywhere in the country and not be semi-close to brothers. I know some people in Texas, because Texas is just one enormous state, are 5 hours away, and in Texas that's considered close, but chances are there are going to be more brothers in your area than you think. So, what do you guys think?
Well, I can pipe in, and I'll just say that when you think about it, I've now been a brother half of my life. I was 20 when Beta Rho was founded, and I joined, and I was only an undergraduate brother for a couple of years. And I went back east and saw a bunch of Alpha Beta brothers that I hadn't seen in years, and it was like just instant connection again, even after years of not seeing them and hanging out together. So it's just as important in my life as it was then. It's not a daily part of my life in that I'm doing things with a chapter every day, but it's still part of my life every day.
And I can definitely jump off that too. Being a somewhat recent new grad, I'm constantly, I'm getting to the point where I still know a few people at my chapter that, were freshmen when they joined. So I still have a few familiar faces at my university chapter. But now they're starting to graduate, and I'm starting to know less and less people at my home chapter. So it's great going back and getting to know the new brothers who are there. But what I've really been enjoying, over the past year has been getting to know brothers in my area. So just this Saturday, I was able to meet a new brother who lives, 5 minutes from me. And we just, you connect pretty instantly just having that common bond of, we were both brothers, and we were able to talk about, what we did as undergrads, but then that segued into, so what are you doing now? And we talking about each other's lives. So, it's that instant connection that you can make with an alumni brother that you may come across in, daily life that, you can sit and chat for a few minutes and really get to know someone based off of sharing that same, tripod of ideas that you're both promising to uphold. So I'm really enjoying it.
And to add on to that, don't think that just because you've moved to a different city that you can't be involved with a different chapter. Brother is a brother, whether you came from Alpha chapter or Team Zeta. It doesn't matter. Brothers are brothers. So when you graduate and you move to a city, if there's a chapter there and you're feeling like you miss being a brother, reach out to them. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from reaching out and trying to interact with them in one way or another. So how do I join the National Alumni Association? That's a good question, because once you graduate, you should join. Like I said earlier, NAA is how alumni stay connected on a national level. You get your subscription to the Lampadian, you get discounts on national events, you get the right to vote and run for NAA Grand Chapter delegate. That's vote on the chapter, not necessarily vote in Grand Chapter. You can be a member in local alumni chapters, and believe it or not, you even get a discount on insurance when you go through Geico. So it's actually pretty easy to join too. Since memberships run on a fiscal year now instead of a calendar year, they run from July 1st to June 30th. And for 90% of alumni, it's a $31 donation to the foundation. If you are a graduating senior, you get a discount because $31 is so much. But graduating seniors get a one-time discount of $15 to join NAA. So I know when I graduated college, I had $0 in my account, so even $16 off helps. But joining NAA right after graduation will keep that sense of brotherhood alive. It's fun to see pictures in the Lampadian of maybe people that you knew in undergrad that got their picture in the Lampadian, or stories about a service event that they did. It's always fun to see people or chapters that you may have met in the Lampadian. And in order to make that donation, you can either go to the website, which is phi sigma pi.org, and then if you'll just put /NAA, you can make a donation. You can call 1-800-366-1916 if you want to do a credit card over the phone. And if you happen to be fortunate enough to live near Lancaster, you can actually go to headquarters and write a check. And that will be my end of infomercial for NAA. My point being, honestly, you should join. It's worth every bit of $31 a year, or even 15 if you're graduating. Trust me, it's worth the 15. So,
if I may, Ryan, when I was VP of Alumni Development, the NAA did not exist, and this was something the committee got together and got going. And it was a kind of a brainchild because we had no good way nationally to keep alumni connected the way the NAA does now. So it's really beneficial to stay in touch. And also, I can tell you, in years way back, the alumni were probably as big of a group at Grand Chapter meetings, but had no voice. The NAA allows the alumni a voice in participating in those Grand Chapter meetings.
And I can jump in there too, since NAA is a big portion of what I do for my daily job. So some just ideas. I know sometimes, like Ryan said when he graduated, $15 was kind of hard to come by. But if you're looking for a fun way to give a gift, so say you're little or you're big and you're someone in your family is graduating, so maybe contribute $5 or $10 towards their membership, or sponsor their membership for them. Say, hey, hey little or hey big, I'm so excited that you're graduating. I want to make sure that you stay involved and stay engaged with Phi Sigma Pi. So allow me to chip in, $5 or $10 or $15 towards your membership. So that's something that your chapter can do. Chapters can purchase $15 NA memberships for their graduating seniors, and it makes a really awesome, great gift. So coming up in the mail, you should be getting an alumni survival guide. So it'd be super cool to give your alumni, this guide as well as, this NA membership. So just something to think about. Graduation gifts, go, hey, Aunt Judy, hey, Mom, Grandma, hey, can you buy me an NA membership? So, because they're just kind of a part of this organization as you are. They saw you go through this process, and I'm sure they want to continue to see you grow and wear your letters and attend events and be involved.
Okay, so too long didn't read version. Join NAA, it's worth it. All right. But if NAA is just not enough, we're also fortunate enough to have 15 different alumni chapters / associations. We've got Baltimore Metro Area Alumni Chapter, which is brand new. Shout out to Baltimore. We've got Capital Alumni Chapter, Central Florida Alumni Chapter, which is the Orlando area, Delaware Valley Alumni Chapter, which is Philly, Greater Monongahela Alumni Chapter, and I'm hoping I said that right, which is in Pittsburgh. You've got Middle Tennessee Alumni Chapter, which is in the Nashville-Murfreesboro area, the New York Metro Area Alumni Chapter, and you guessed where that was, in New York. Then you've got Southern Appalachian Alumni Chapter, which I'm just going to say is a shout-out, is an awesome chapter. We're in East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, Northwest Carolina. And then you've got the alumni associations in Atlanta. You've got the Columbus Area Alumni Association, the Greater Boston Alumni Association, and the Richmond Area Alumni Association, the Southeast Louisiana Alumni Association, and the Western Kentucky Alumni Association.
We did miss one in there, Ryan. We missed Eastern North Carolina, which is
I missed it. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
I apologize if you're watching. Eastern North Carolina, which is in Greenville, North Carolina, is also there. I'm so sorry. I don't know how I missed that. I have them all listed here on my computer, and they're in really tiny print, so I guess I should have worn glasses. But the point being, alumni chapters are a great way to get interaction with other alumni and still have people that are old enough to understand that you're not in an undergrad chapter anymore. You know, alumni chapters often, we don't meet once a week. We don't have point systems. If you guys, well, I know SAC doesn't, and most of the alumni chapters don't have point systems that you have to fulfill. Alumni chapters tend to be a little more easygoing because we understand that, you know, you're in real life now. You're in big people land. I know that sounds terrible. Not to say college students aren't big people, but life's different once you graduate. You know, like I said, paying bills and having other commitments. But it's nice to have an alumni chapter that you can hang out with once a month, once every 2 weeks, and just meet with brothers. You know, like-minded individuals that have been through very similar circumstances as you. So. I can't say enough about joining alumni chapters or associations. The other thing is if there isn't one near you, you can start one. Alumni chapters essentially start off as alumni associations, and there's a great document on the national website. Wow, the national website, and it's called the Alumni Chapter Toolkit, which has everything that you need to start your own alumni chapter. It's got requirements. It's got, you know, typical things you should be doing, who to contact for certain things. It's a great system set up to make it easy for alumni chapters to form. Step one, obviously, is to contact Sarah Smith, who happens to be with us. And request the information for alumni in your area. So if there's 2 or 3 of you in an area and you want to know how many alumni are in your area to try to reach out to them, Sarah's your go-to person. It will amaze you how many alumni actually live where you are. I've heard of people who live in the boondocks and there's 150 people within 30 miles, which kind of blew my mind because this person was out in the middle of nowhere. But the point being, you'd be amazed how many people are around, and just reaching out to them can get them interested. Sarah, you probably want to say some more about that.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going through this process currently where I live. I live in South Central PA, so York, Lancaster, Harrisburg area, and we're trying to start an alumni association. So what I did is, if once you're ready to look into starting an association, and you've contacted maybe a few that you know of in your area, and it's like, hey, we're going to do this, we're all for it, email me, call the national office, and I can run a report based off our, records to see what alumni are in your area. So this is all, again, all laid out in that alumni chapter toolkit, which is found in the alumni organizations page off the national website. So just contact me. I can run that list, send that to you. I am also can help send out email blasts to those alumni. So if you want to set up like a meet and greet social at, some restaurant for dinner, send me that information, the date, the time, where it's at, and then I can help set up a flyer, send that out to your alumni, and have them contact you. We can send out letters as well. So basically, I'm here to help you recruit to get your association started. One thing I did is I created a Facebook group, so I shared that in Chapter Talk. I shared it on my wall, just saying, hey, invite your friends who you know are in the area. And we were able to get about 50-some people just from sending that out. So we've done that. We've done surveys. So I've created, an alumni interest survey. So what day of the week are you most available? Are you interested more in weekday evenings? Are you interested in weekends? Is family-friendly events important to you? So, an alumni who may be older has, their children or spouses or significant others that they want to bring along to events. Do they want to have an option to bring, their children to an event? So that was one of those questions that judging, it was a great help for me deciding what events to hold and when to hold them, getting their feedback. So yeah, so it's a great process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's definitely like we have our colony process of starting new chapters. It's definitely that building process and gaining interest, but I'm going through it right now, and I've been meeting a wonderful people, and it's, I'm creating friendships, and in the 2 months that I started this process, I'm already creating friends who I see on a weekly basis now. So it's a great process. If you're interested, there might be alumni in your area that are already trying to start a chapter or an association. So just contact me. I can help you get that going. And again, just check out the Alumni Chapter Toolkit. It has it all laid out for you. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, Sarah's a great resource if you need anything alumni related. She's your go-to person. So, but let's imagine that you can't start an alumni chapter, or there's not enough people that want to start one, but you still want to stay involved as an alumni. There are several ways that you can do that. A great one that I recommend, because I was one for several years, is Chapter Alumni Advisor. And the role that usually fills is giving advice, giving direction and support when the chapter needs you. Being available for questions or advice. Just being essentially a kind of a go-to person that undergrads can go to, because believe it or not, undergrads face the same situations you were in when you were an undergrad. So it's nice to be able to say, oh, hey, I remember, we had the exact same situation. Here's how we solved it. No problems. And the look of relief on undergrad brothers' faces will amaze you when you come up with just really simple fixes. So you can also, like I said earlier, start a chapter. You can do leadership in action, which is, as most of you should know, is a great training tool. And as an alumnus, you can participate in modules, or you can even facilitate them. I know a lot of members of SAC actually facilitate leadership in action modules. You can be a regional volunteer, which is great because you help undergrad chapters plan their regional conference. My fiance Jillian was a regional volunteer the first year we did regional volunteers, and she had a great experience. It's nice to be able to be a resource, almost like an alumni advisor, only for the people who are planning your regional conference. And it's a great way to interact, because it's essentially bi-weekly or weekly, depending on what part of the year you're in. And you just facilitate helping them do what they want to do for their regional conference, and make sure they stay on track. You can be a National Convention Ambassador, which is a relatively new role. You assist the national staff with convention tasks like greeting attendees, directing attendees to the check-in help desk, or finding the staff member they need, or assisting during LIA modules and roundtable discussions. It's a nice way to fill in where staff may be spread just a little thin, and having one extra set of hands would make things so much easier. So there's that. You can be a national committee member. We've got the National Development Committee and the Chapter Standards and Constitution Committee. It's CSCC, and I can't remember what the second C is. I'm pretty sure it's Constitution. But these two committees are national committees. The NDC, which is National Development Committee, is designed to bring together a whole bunch of different diverse brothers and help out with any projects that either council comes up with, or if you're on the committee and want to propose a project, see if National Council wants to take that and run with it. It's a nice way. It's also another nice way to give back, and you don't have to be in person for it. It's essentially entirely online. So I was a member of NDC too, and it was a good experience. You can also be a National Council member. I'm sure Becky can tell you that it's a pretty rewarding experience. Um, it's not without its work to be put in, but on the same token, it's it's great to be able to listen to your brothers and see where the fraternity has been and then where it needs to go. Um, so if you want to run for national council, please don't be afraid, run for national council. It's a great opportunity to show that leadership leg of the tripod. Becky, you want to talk more about being on national council?
Sure. I actually had a unique opportunity because the Constitution, at least at the time when I was an undergrad, I don't know if it's changed, allowed for the National Council to appoint an advisory board, and they could kind of just appoint whoever they wanted to attend council meetings. And at the time I was an undergrad, I was actually selected as someone from a new chapter to participate. So I had the experience of attending council meetings as an undergrad and really got exposed to how it all worked. And I still, even sitting through the meetings, thought, I don't know if I'm like good enough, I guess is what the way I thought. I can't possibly be that cool to be on council or whatever. But the national president at the time, Mark Papp, said, so what position are you running for? And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, you're here. You're going to run, right? And I said, well, I guess. And so I just got that little nudge to do it, and I ran, and it was an amazing experience. And I would have kept doing it had I not moved, and it ended up being kind of logistically hard for me at the time of my life to keep doing it. But it's definitely a rewarding experience to get to know the fraternity in and out, getting to know people all over the country from all different chapters, alumni and undergrads. The council I served with, I was very close with and still am, and I feel like I have a bond with those people that I don't have with anyone else. So, it's not for everybody, but if you've ever thought about it, I hope that maybe this is your little nudge to think about doing it in the future, because honestly, any of us can do it. We're all brothers, and we all have what it takes to do it.
Very well put. I cannot agree more. If you have any inclination whatsoever of wanting to be on national council, don't think about it. Just do it. All right. Do like Nike. Just do it. But why don't we transition here from exclusively Phi Sigma Pi related things and go into life after college. So for instance, you're fresh out of college and looking for a job. How does your Phi Sigma Pi experience help you in the real world? And I'll let Becky take over in that one.
All right. So I think all of the leadership experience you get, whether you're holding a position in your chapter, whether it's just as a committee member or even just a brother at large who never holds a position, you're always going to be involved in either planning events, running events, you name it. Even if it was just, you're president of your initiate class, whatever it is, you're gaining experience that can be translated into the real world, even though you might think, well, planning the brother party doesn't seem like it would be relevant. But when you're planning, all the logistics to it, those are things that can translate into the real world. So when you're trying to communicate what experience you have that might be relevant to a job, you can focus on the things that you did within the fraternity that produced results. So if you were in charge of a fundraiser, you want to focus on what you did to launch that event, how you were successful in, what you accomplished for it. Were you organizing other brothers in getting that event off the ground? All the logistics to that kind of thing are translatable, because that can tell an employer that you can take initiative, that you can plan ahead, that you can manage your time. Also use those as a learning experience. You might find that in job interviews, you might be asked some questions where, what are some mistakes you've made in a past job that you can learn from? And if you haven't had a lot of work experience, you might not be able to answer that with a work answer. But if you say, planned an event for the chapter and it was a disaster, or you had something go wrong at a critical point, like, for example, Beta Rho's 20th anniversary Founders Day was in February, and we had a snowstorm. So the actual banquet was canceled, but our fabulous planner, Stacy, was able to actually still get all the food from the hotel because they had been cooking it all day, and was able to deliver it to one of the housing complexes where most of the brothers live. So everybody still got dinner, and a lot of people still got together. But it was, she had to think on her feet and figure out, how are we going to deal with this crisis, because there was no controlling the snowstorm. So, things like that come up, you can translate into experiences you've learned from, to show that you can learn from your mistakes, and also all the leadership skills that you've gained can translate into things that you can actually do to accomplish a job with an employer.
Yeah, and just a little small addition to that, like she was saying, anytime you can take your fraternity experience and relate it to the job that you're applying for, it will be a good experience. If this particular job you're looking for, you have to work in a team, there's no way you weren't in a committee as an undergrad. So, talk about your experience in being on social committee and having to deal with or work with people that you may not necessarily have gotten along with or agreed with, but you were able to work out the difference, get ahead, and the year went on swimmingly, even though the 8 of you were so different it'll blown your mind. Anytime you can do that really makes Phi Sigma Pi a great experience to talk to an employer about. So next question, what are 3 basic tips to keep in mind when someone's preparing their resume?
All right, so these things might sound like common sense, but I've read literally thousands of resumes, and there are so many things that seem like common sense that people do all the time. So the first best thing to do is proofread it and have someone else proofread it. It's amazing how many resumes I get with typos. You can tell, they typed one word and meant another. It's just they've relied only on spell check. And you don't necessarily need to have someone in your field proofread it, although that's a good idea for the content of it. But you can have anybody who you trust, whether it be a parent or some other professional person that you might have a relationship with, give you some feedback on your resume. You want to use a clean, clear font, and don't use 1,500 of them. It is so distracting and hard to read. I can tell you that I can look at a resume and within 5 seconds decide if I'm going to keep reading it based on how it looks when I pull it up on the screen. So you don't want your resume to get rejected by an HR person because it's got a whole bunch of jumbled fonts. Keep it clean. You also want to make sure you're highlighting your accomplishments, not just, when I worked at McDonald's I did this. You want to show in your resume what those things you did can bring to the table for the next employer. So you might need to get a little help with that if you're trying to get into a career for the first time and all of your job experience has been, working retail or fast food or on campus or whatever it is, and not necessarily applicable to your field. But you may have a career counseling center on campus that you could get some help from. You also might want to consider going to the department or someone within your major, whether it be a professor or just the department itself. They may have someone that can help you translate what you've been doing in school to what your career with that degree will be.
Yeah, and I will add two really, really small notes to that. One, Comic Sans is not a legitimate font.
Right.
I don't care who tells you that, they're lying. The other thing is, oftentimes you want to be able to tailor your resume to the job that you want. That really shows initiative. I know when I'm hiring, if I'm hiring for somebody who wants to work in a lab and you're telling me about the time that you cleaned up at McDonald's, that's not going to help me. But if you tailor it to say, when a piece of equipment broke or there was an emergency situation, or able to keep your head about in an emergency situation and have that instance, that sounds a whole lot better than the oil spilled and I cleaned it up. So being able to tailor any of your experiences to the job that you're applying for will go a long way as well. But why does Phi Sigma Pi look good on a resume?
All right, well, I had dug around and was looking for an old copy of my resume, but it's lost in the history of time from back when I was an undergrad looking for a job. But when you don't have a lot of practical job experience, it's good to be able to have Phi Sigma Pi on your resume because of, as I mentioned, any experience you have in any kind of leadership role, whether it was a titled role or not. So you can highlight any of the events that you've planned, coordinated. If you did hold a leadership role, it shows your employer that you haven't just been going to school and with your nose in the books. It shows that while you've been at school, you've been working towards something, and particularly the service element is a helpful thing for employers. It shows that you're not just out there to make a paycheck, that you care about something. So if your chapter has a specific cause or local group or even any kind of specific charity that you support, that may be helpful to include if you guys do a specific fundraising event or some other event for that charity, and particularly if you have some involvement in planning that. That does look attractive to employers to show that you've got some experience doing those types of things.
Agreed. Employers want to keep your resume to just one page. So how should members add Phi Sigma Pi to their resume, keeping it short and yet making it seem relevant?
Well, I can tell you that I think most of you probably know, just from writing papers and whatnot, if you know what you're writing is fluff, the employer will know that it's fluff. So don't try to add stuff to your resume just to fill the space. Now, if you have the opposite problem where you've got too much and you're trying to condense it down, focus on the accomplishments you're able to have. and results that you've produced. So, you know, if you helped coordinate an event where you, the chapter was able to package up 500 sack lunches for the homeless, you know, you can summarize that by not listing every single service event you ever did, but you can say, as service committee chair, I organized such and such an event, or multiple events including, and then you can put, you know, the 500 sack lunches. So that way you're not trying to cram every service event or, you know, whether it's scholarship or social event in there, but you can kind of condense it down to one thing that you feel like was one of your biggest accomplishments with that role.
Really good advice. That's all the questions I have prepared. Sarah, do we have anything from the interwebs?
Yes, we do. We have. How should I talk about Phi Sigma Pi in job interviews?
Becky, you want that one? Or you want me to take it?
I can start it, and then maybe if you want to throw in your 2 cents. So employers will often ask you questions that are going to try to get to know your personality, but also your skill set. So a good way to talk about Phi Sigma Pi in an interview is when an employer asks you a question about what in your experience makes you feel like you might be a fit for this position. You might not have any direct work experience, but something that you've done with the chapter may be applicable. So that's where you can say, well, in my experience with Phi Sigma Pi, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's where you can highlight what specific thing might be relevant. Now, make sure it's going to be somehow relevant to the question that the employer is asking that can actually highlight why it might be applicable to the job that you're interviewing for. The other thing that you can do is, if you don't have a way to bring up the fraternity with any of the questions that the employer asks, usually you're going to get asked a question like, well, is there anything else about yourself you'd like to tell me? That's a point where you can say, well, I'd like to let you know about my leadership experience that I gained with Phi Sigma Pi, and then you can give a few examples. You know, don't go overboard with your entire, you know, history of every position you held in the chapter. But again, that's a good opportunity to say, well, here are some leadership skills I gained by doing X, Y, and Z with Phi Sigma Pi. Right?
Yeah, I'll actually tie this one into the previous question too about resumes. By all means, put Phi Sigma Pi on your resume, but don't put something on there that you are not able to back up in a conversation. So I know I was pre-med, believe it or not, in undergrad, and you know, there's all these organizations that you're a member of that you did absolutely nothing with. And if you put that on your resume, it's free game for the person interviewing you to talk about. So if, you know, you joined an honor society and what you did was pay your $15 to get your sheet of paper, you can't really talk about that. So if you're going to put events on your resume, make it something that, you know, you feel strongly about, something that you recall vividly, that you can talk about person to person, because that will make all the difference. I know when I interview people, I've, you know, asked them about certain things, and I get the, well, we really didn't do that much. Okay, well then why did you even put this on your resume? So that's my 2 cents, is make sure anything you are going to talk about, you can talk about, essentially.
And then I have a tip coming from my experiences. I was an education major, so the past 2 school years I went through a lot of interviews. And one of the things I really learned and advice that I was given is they, you know, like Becky was saying, that if you don't have previous work experience, really sell Phi Sigma Pi as a job. When I was vice president, there was weeks when I put in, 10 to 15 hours of work. So, really just try to highlight, don't understate, the hard work that you put in to being a brother and your leadership positions within the chapter, and really make sure that, don't, interviews is a time to really sell yourself, and I know sometimes when you're trying to be humble and not really brag, but, don't be afraid to, like Becky said, talk about your accomplishments and talk about things that you got done and you succeeded with, and, don't underestimate yourself. Just really use that time to be confident and shine and say, that I was a brother of Phi Sigma Pi. I was on e-board. We met weekly. We had our committee meetings. I managed a committee of 8 people. Here's what we did. So I think going through multiple interviews is something I really learned how to speak up about, instead of trying to, I was just involved with this, fraternity on campus, but really, make it shine and really, it's an honor to be a brother. It's an honor to be a part of this organization, and you have to be you have the qualifications. So make sure that you really sell yourself and use that time to be proud of yourself and really talk about what you have accomplished.
I agree completely. Do we have any more?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah and Becky, for joining me for our roundtable. I hope everybody that was watching had a wonderful time in our roundtable. I'm 90% certain that this will be on YouTube soon, so if there's somebody that you want to see this who didn't get to tonight, please be sure and share the link to them. But if you have any questions, feel free to contact me or Sarah about alumni issues. If we don't know the answer, we'll get you in contact with the person who does. So that's all I've got to say. I guess that's all everybody else to say. So, good night, guys.
Good night.